Hey everyone, Jason here again. Today's video we're talking about guy lines for your tents. So a lot of people have been wondering and asking me and asking others about what is the proper length for a guy line tent. So as most of us have answered, it's not about the length, it's about the angle. And a couple of websites out there suggest that you have the guy line at a 90-degree angle from the tent poles. And outdoors.org actually says, and when they say that, they then say, as basically a disclaimer, that obviously that's really difficult unless you have a tree or a pole or something that you can connect the guy line to make that 90-degree angle. Not going to happen if you have to stake down the guy line at any point in the ground between your tent and the length of the guy line. You're never going to achieve that unless you tie it to something that's upright like that. Or maybe even a hiking pole. If you had a hiking pole, that would give you at least really close to that 90-degree angle. So, for all practicalities, the things that affect the length of your guy lines are going to be, with the tent, what the guy line is actually attached to. If it's attached to a air vent flap on the rainfly, if it's attached to the rainfly somewhere from the middle and upwards, or if it's attached somewhere down towards the bottom of the rainfly. Those obviously have their different reasons. The air vent flap is going to be for the guy lines, tying it out for trying to maximize the amount of airflow into the inner tent. If it's attached to the side of the rainfly, somewhere from the middle upwards, then it's serving two purposes. One, for pulling the rainfly out away from the inner tent to prevent from as much condensation and giving a little more airflow inside the inner tent, as well as helping secure the tent down and the rainfly down for severe inclement weather. If the attachment is on the lower part of the rainfly or really close to the bottom of it, then it's really serving the primary purpose of inclement severe weather, securing the rainfly and helping keep the tent, strapped down, nice and tight. So those are, and then lastly, the stakes is the last factor. So if you have, whether you have your typical length of stake, that's about 6 to 7.5 inches, or you have the great big snow stakes and sand stakes that are much longer and wider, or if you have the tiny little mini groundhog stakes, you're trying to go ultralight for your ultralight backpacking tents. Those little guys that are anywhere from 4.5 to 6 inches in length, that type of mini stake. Those all those factors come into effect with the lengths of your guy lines. Okay, obviously, the taller the tent, the higher the attachment point is, the longer your guy line is going to need to be to reach to the ground. So, without the 90-degree from the tent poles, if you're staking it down to the ground, depending on what stakes you have and where the guy line is attached, I generally use the measurement of the angle of the guy line cord itself. So, with the guy line tightener all the way out to pretty much its full length, so I have the full length of my guy line, and I pull that out taut and stake it in the ground. I use, this is a T-square of mine used for construction woodworking, or you could use a protractor or anything else that you might have or able to get your hands on for measuring the angle of the guy line from the base of the stake. So the goal here is to keep that anywhere between 15 and 45 degrees. The angle of the guy line from where it's staked down on the ground, the angle of that is anywhere between 15 and 45 degrees. Okay? So you start off with that. Whatever length that is, if for your tent that means that this guy line ends up being 15 feet long and you really don't want it to be that long, then make your, outer limits of that angle be close, much closer to that 45. So if you personally really don't want your guy lines coming out more than, in this case with this small of a tent, let's say 3 feet. If I don't want this guy line coming out more than 3 feet, which is right about right there, then that's where I'm going to stake it in the ground, and then I'm going to make my tensioner. I'm going to cut this guy line down a little bit so that my tensioner starts right here, so that I have room to move it up the guy line from close to the base right here. So that's how I would do that. If I am totally okay with my guy lines being 10, 15, 20 feet long, then I'm going to cut them that long and stretch them out for the sake of maybe an air vent to maximize my airflow. That's what I would do. For the pull-outs, the guy lines for anything that's real close to the bottom of the Rainfly, I wouldn't even use an tensioner. If it's, if the guy line's going to be less than a foot long, then why do you really need a tensioner? It's just to help secure the Rainfly down to the ground and help, anchor the tent down. That's its main purpose. But so, again, anything that's between that 15 to 45 degrees of the guy line wire itself, so right here, about 3 feet away, it's around 30 to 35 degrees of an angle from the ground and the guy line. That's what the goal is. That's what I'm looking for. So hopefully this gives you a better idea of how to go about doing your guy lines. It really ends up boiling down to personal preference. Obviously, if you put your guy line, if the stake is like really close to the bottom of the tent, that's not going to work very well, because and the guy lines, going, almost straight down, any good gust of wind or bad weather is just going to pull that stake right out. So you have to make sure that you at least go far out enough to and have that 45 to 15 degree angle, because once you get to where the guy line is in that, crosses that 45 degree and starts going looking like this, then your stakes aren't going to stay in the ground, no matter what kind of stake you have. There's going to be a breaking point. So staying between that 15 and that 45 degree is going to keep you with most of your stakes, just about all of your stakes. You're gonna have a secured anchoring with that guy line, and it's going to function the way you want it to function. So again, hope that helps. And again, if you drag in the guy line all the way out there, then you're going to need a longer, stronger stake, and hopefully not trip over it. So all the power to you, in hopes of being able to figure out what's going to work best for you. Hope this helps. Again, there's really not much out there online talking about it, so I really hope this video was helpful and you got something out of it. And until next time, I'll see you guys later, and happy camping.